Hello there. So I'm kind of doing a video on the subject of ammonia and powerlifting and what it's used for. So if you don't know, in the sport of powerlifting, you'll often see during competitions, sometimes in the gym, but a lot of the times during competitions, guys will take like a bottle like this, or they'll take like little packets, and they'll either crack the packet open, sniff it, and then go for a lift, or they'll um, kind of do it from the bottle. They'll inhale from the bottle, and then they'll go and do a lift. And then people who don't know what it is, they'll think that, oh, it's like cocaine or something like that. But in fact, it's just ammonia, and ammonia is used kind of like as like a cleaning product usually, but then they use it in this case as like a smelling salt. And the idea being that you can kind of generate more force when you sniff it and you inhale it. You kind of it's used to wake up people that are like asleep or they're like unconscious. They take a little ammonia inhalant, they take it to their nose, and then if the person is like dead, they won't wake up. But if they're unconscious or just otherwise they're like kind of asleep or something, they'll wake up right away. And it's used for kind of medical teams like that to get people conscious again. Um, and like you see lifters using it, you see them using it for heavier weights, for maximal loads, for sets of 5, heavy sets of 5, or heavy triples, heavy doubles, or kind of maxes in the gym or at competition. Um, so like, do you need to use it? And what are the pros and cons? So I've like read research about it, and I've had my own experiences about it, and experiences of friends and experiences of lifters I've coached, and I can kind of discuss like what my opinion is. So from the research I've read, I kind of read that ammonia is ideal for max force output, and that kind of fits ideally for a sport that's one where you have to like produce explosive force. So in that sense, it kind of makes sense to use ammonia more for Olympic lifts than it does for powerlifting, because powerlifting is I mean, it's not explosive, and it's not powerlifting, they say, is like a misnomer. Like technically you're generating power um for when you do the Olympic lifts, but then powerlifting is kind of more I forget the exact like science or the terminology of it, but it's like more like you're just moving a weight like a certain distance. You're moving it in a straight line, but you're not like generating force like in the physics sense. You're not generating power in the physics sense, it's just you're kind of like moving an object in a straight line in a certain direction. So you're not generating the same explosive force for powerlifting. So arguably, you don't need to use ammonia. I know that a lot of pro lifters, a lot of the best lifters, just don't use it. They like don't like it or they don't need it. What happens? My own experience with it is like, okay, you inhale it. You don't want to inhale too much, because then you start to tear up, and you can feel kind of horrible. You start to get tears in your eyes, and it's like kind of crazy. But you get just the right amount, and it's like someone kind of slapped you across the face, and like you know what to do, and your neural like pathways are much more clear. Like your brain is thinking a lot more clearly, and you can kind of just like go and rip it up, go for the weight. I saw that you can do like maybe 5 to 10 more pounds than you usually would, but not like a lot more. um, I personally like it maybe only for competition, for like a second or third lift, but then I don't even then I don't like to do it that much. And it's like everyone has personal preferences. A lot of powerlifters like to use it. um, I personally like kind of training from a state that's more kind of zen, more like calm, and more just focused on yourself, your form, your body, and your inner psychology. I know there are a lot of lifters that actually don't really rely on it or use it, and but there are many that do. And I like kind of being just me, so I even like not using pre-workout. I like not using ammonia, and I will use them sometimes, but for the most part, like, you don't need to have them, you don't have to have them, and they're an asset, but they're not something you want to depend on. I think the wrong way to use it is if use it like all the time, like in workouts constantly. Maybe you can save it for competition day. um and then see which lift it works well for you. So some people like it for squat. Personally, I only really got benefits for it from when I used it for deadlift. Some people like it for squat and for bench and for deadlift. But I think the big thing is that when you're using it, like maybe use it just for a competition or for a max lift in a gym, and don't use it regularly. If you're having to use it to really psych yourself up and to hit like your regular sets, then that's kind of dumb, because you should, when you're doing your sets in training, they should be sub maximal for the most part, and they should be sets that you can hit, without psyching yourself up, that you can hit normally under normal conditions. You don't have to take a ton of pre-workout to hit them. You don't have to insanely bulk to hit them, and you don't have to snort ammonia like every set to go and hit them. I feel just at the end of the day that it's something that's kind of experimental, and you can try and use it and see if you gain benefits from it, and if you like using it regularly or not, or semi-regularly or not. Um, I've heard that there's no long-term downsides to your health if you use it, but I feel like skeptical, like there probably is. If you're like sniffing ammonia out of like a freaking bottle and doing it regularly, like every week, I feel like that would come with some downsides in some way, potentially. It's not natural, and it's not like something you would normally be doing otherwise. But I would say that experience is kind of the biggest thing, and for my own lifters, like I've had them try it if they were like afraid or nervous to go for it. But I'd say like for special occasions, for save it for competition day, or like a few weeks out. Like if you're gonna compete, 3 or 4 weeks out, you can do ammonia for your heavy sets that are leading up to your peak week and to competition day, and otherwise just maybe don't use it, or like try it, see if you like it, but then otherwise don't use it regularly, don't use it habitually, don't use it when, I mean, just for regular training for 50%, 60%, or like 5 sets of 5 or whatever you're doing. You don't want to use it for just basic training, and save it for the days where you could use it and it could really matter, for the competition days or something like that. So those are kind of my thoughts on it. And then, oh, and just the last thing too is that, yeah, I do kind of agree in my experience that it helps more with like an explosive lift. So I've always seen like I only get stuff from it from a deadlift, but for squat and bench, I personally never got that much. If you're like an explosive deadlifter, then maybe you get something out of it. Like I got like a good, I think like 10 or 20 pounds from using ammonia versus not. But otherwise, it's kind of like, I mean, you want your training to be working, and you want to be able to do a lot of training just sober, in my opinion, without pre-workout, without, yeah, like all the hyped up caffeine, without tons of food and calories in you necessarily, and with just without the ammonia, without anything else, without your friends psyching you up, without being in the perfect gym, with instead just being able to have a calm state of mind, be focused, go in, hit your set with good form, and just good intent, and calm, not too aggressive, and just a good focus state, and then you go and hit it. I think that's, there's something to be said about that really sober type of training like that, and that's the ultimate goal, and that's why I even tend to shy away. And this is personally, I'll just say real quick that like when I compete, it is kind of about just me like beating my best, and I'm not as competitive as many friends or many really serious competitors, where they're like, okay, I have to win and I'm gonna get those extra 20 or 30 pounds no matter what. I like lifting from like a really sober state, so even then I don't use it that much. Maybe just once in a while for fun, or once in a while in a competition if I feel like it. But I would suggest you can try it for some heavy days, and even if you really like it, do it once in a while. Don't do it all the time. So those are kind of my thoughts just on the topic of ammonia, how to use it for powerlifting, why it's used for powerlifting, and just kind of my opinions on it.